I see no reason why Clemson cannot run the table in the regular season, but that's not the only part of the prediction. I have them as my national title contender, so that would mean they run the full table and become the first team in the 12-team playoff to go completely undefeated. Let's talk about some hot takes. Everyone has a hot take going into the college football season. If you have a hot take, I want to hear it, and I want to be able to react to it on the show and tell you either how smart you potentially are or how dumb this take is. But it'd be wrong for me to judge hot takes without telling you some of mine. And I will tell you right now, these are going to be relatively unhinged because hot takes need to be. I'm not going to sit here and try to tell you, I don't know, Georgia's going to win the national championship because Georgia is not that high compared to the rest of the field in terms of national championship odds. I'm not going to sit here and try to convince you, oh yeah, I think Oklahoma is going to make the college football playoff and that's going to be my steaming hot take, even though it's been one of the more popular takes across the entire offseason in terms of the dark horse team. I'm not going to pick the popular ones. These are going to be relatively unhinged. First hot take I want to say here, Texas A&M and Georgia are both going to have 1,000-yard receivers. Now, I'm pausing for effect because you may say, well, that's oddly specific. Why these teams? Why did he choose these two teams to just get 1,000 yards from a receiver? Well, Texas A&M, here's some trivia for you. Who was the last Texas A&M wide receiver to get to 1,000 yards? I'll give you a hint. It is in 2016. And it was Josh Reynolds. Something that I have sneakily been following for the better part of, we're getting close to a decade at this point. Texas A&M has just not been very good at the wide receiver position. I mean, they were in the 90s in terms of passing yards last season. You had Noah Thomas be your leading receiver, and he was, I believe, 22nd, not in the country, in the entire SEC. Your number one receiving leader was 22nd in a conference that doesn't even have 22 teams. So multiple wide receivers were ahead of them for other teams. And I think it'll be different when you have Casey Concepcion, Mario Craver. I think these guys are just going to rack up yards. All the returns about Texas A&M's wide receiver core that has been projected to improve looks to be the part. And that is with I think, the best rushing attack in the SEC. I expect one of those wide receivers to break out barring injury. Now, the more common one that is a trivia fact is who was the last UGA wide receiver or even tight end, just a receiver in general, to get to 1,000 yards. We are looking at 2002, which is even worse than what we have with Texas A&M. Over 20 years at this point, which is crazy to think about that Brock Bowers never got to 1,000 with Stetson Bennett. It's not like they were passing the ball over the place, but it's still crazy to think about. I think a guy like Zachariah Branch could do it. I just expect, even though they are technically downgrading in the quarterback talent passing the ball, I think it could happen this year. It's one of those things where when you expect it to happen, it doesn't happen. When it doesn't become the expectation, that's when it does. I think they did upgrade in the wide receiver room. I think there was multiple chances that could have happened. They just dropped the football last season. There was some beautiful balls that, Carson Beck was throwing and they just got dropped. If they are just caught, they could potentially be in this conversation. And it could be a hot take within itself if I just said a UGA wide receiver was to go for 1,000. But, as one late great person said, parlays are the devil. I'm falling for it with a UGA Texas A&M wide receiver going for 1,000. We're going with a quarterback here for the next hot take. My next hot take for the 2025 season is Ty Simpson is going to lead the SEC in passing yards. Now, I don't have Ty Simpson as my Heisman. I don't have Ty Simpson as the best quarterback in the country. This is a pure numbers prediction. Knowing what Alabama has in this wide receiver room with guys like Ryan Williams, Horton, and others, and knowing how good their offensive line is with Ryan Grubb and Kalen DeBoer, there's just too much to like for a former 5-star quarterback that just has to put the ball into the receiver's hands. And I think Ty Simpson, being a guy that wanted to stay with Alabama, I trust, and he is one of the guys that in a quarterback battle took the job. That's an underrated fact when talking about the offseason. He took the job. He was definitive, the quarterback that is going into the season and being the guy. And I think he's going to put up incredible numbers. I think he's going to put up some really gaudy passing yards. And that's why I think he's at least going to be in contention to lead the entire SEC. I think Nussmeier's a great option here. DJ Lagway is tempting solely for the fact that he's just that talented, but I think the schedule, plus I think it's going to take a little bit for him to get the ball rolling. Same for guys like Arch Manning. I don't think Sellers is going to pass it enough. I don't think Marcel Reed is going to pass it enough. I think it really will end up coming down to Nussmeier and Ty Simpson, and I think the sneaky pick is going to be Ty Simpson just in passing yards. The next hot take I have is Ohio State, the Ohio State Buckeyes, will play at least 2 quarterbacks this season. And I'm saying not because one comes into garbage time, not because one guy just steps in while it's 60-0. I'm talking 2 starting quarterbacks, and it's going to be because of a non-injury reason. Basically meaning Julian saying, I think, will potentially play poor enough where they test the other waters, where they go see what the other side of the coin looks like. Now, this is not to say I don't think Sayin could, I'm not trying to say Sayin's going to be outright bad, because I think Sayin's talented. He has what we call one of the most quick releases I've ever seen. Lightning release. That's what everyone has talked about when talking about Julian Sayin. And this could bite me so bad by week 1 if he goes and lights up that Texas defense. But I think with the new offensive coordinator, with how close this quarterback battle is, I could see a world where maybe they lose to Texas. Maybe they lose to Penn State. And it is all chips in. We need to see the other side of the coin to potentially salvage the season and get to a college football playoff spot. That Ohio State, with all these different changes, they go test the other side. It's not going to be St. Clair. I'm blanking on the kid's name, so I apologize. I'm going to pull it up right now. St. Clair's probably going to be QB3. Oh, Keenholz. And if I butcher his name, I apologize. I think they're going to test him out. As crazy as it might be, I think they'll end up going with at least 2 starting quarterbacks this year. Will I be wrong? Probably, because I think Sayin's really talented. But to what I was talking about with Ty was he took the job. You have to take the job. You could be the favorite going into it. I think a real good example was with Jalen Hurts at Alabama. He was not seen as the favorite for the starting quarterback job, but that was never taken. And when he got his opportunity, they hit the ground running, and it was over from that point forward. I could see a world where we're in that same space because everyone assumes Sayin as the 5-star guy transferred in from Alabama, that he's just automatically getting the job, and he probably will start against Texas, but he has not taken it by any report from Ohio State. And I could see that being a major red flag, so that's why I put them as one of my hot takes. Next hot take, second to last. My next hot take for the 2025 season is Clemson runs the table. If Clemson wins their week 1 game, this could backfire in week 1 against LSU. It could easily happen. I'm very high on LSU. But if they get past them and they look good doing it, they show that they're the real Death Valley. I see no reason why Clemson cannot run the table in the regular season. But that's not the only part of the prediction. I have them as my national title contender. So that would mean they run the full table and become the first team in the 12-team playoff to go completely undefeated. They do what Oregon had the potential of doing last year, but they don't get bounced in the first round. They win the national championship because they are set up in the ACC. Yes, there's spots against Georgia Tech. There's spots against South Carolina that they could easily lose because Georgia Tech plays a style that at any given Saturday could beat you. South Carolina has Sellers who could easily game wreck any game that he steps on a football field for. But I'm that high on Clemson. I see the story where by the end of this season, we look back and say, oh, who was the team that just had so much NFL talent? They're going to have the most guys drafted in the upcoming 2026 NFL draft, and they won the national title because that's been the trend, is these deep veteran rosters that have a ton of senior talent, a veteran quarterback with experience, and a ton of NFL talent just goes far. And I would be shocked if they dropped a regular season game outside of the LSU one. If they were to lose that game and then run the table, I would be wrong in this take, but I wouldn't feel bad about it. I'm that high on Clemson. They're my number one team in the country, and I think they're going to be my national championship pick.